AITA for blocking my wife's $89,200 transfer after she drained our savings? I'm Colin, 35, and for 7 years, I was Maya's husband. For most of that time, I thought our differences made us work. Maya was intense, confident, and almost impossible to embarrass. She could convince a restaurant manager to apologize for losing a reservation she had never actually made, then steal fries from my plate in the car and laugh until I laughed too. I was the cautious one. I checked receipts, remembered due dates, and noticed when a subscription renewed at the wrong price. I used to think her certainty balanced me. That was before every question I asked became control. The $89,200 hadn't appeared overnight. We built it slowly through automatic monthly transfers, tax refunds, bonuses, and all the boring little decisions nobody posts pictures of. We kept our phones longer than we wanted. We skipped 2 expensive vacations. When relatives gave us cash for anniversaries, we put most of it away instead of spending it on something impressive. The account was not mine. It was not hers. It was ours. It was the reason I could sleep when the dishwasher started making a grinding sound or a medical bill arrived with 3 different numbers printed on it. It was supposed to be our emergency cushion and the foundation for whatever came next. Maya used to agree. She was the one who picked the automatic transfer amount when we opened the account. She once told me, "I never want us to stay in a bad situation because we can't afford to leave." At the time, I thought she meant a bad job, a medical emergency, or some unexpected crisis. I didn't realize she was eventually going to apply that sentence to me. The shift started about 6 months before the account disappeared. At first, it was small enough that I told myself I was imagining it. Maya changed the password to one of our shared shopping accounts and said she was tired of me seeing everything. She began carrying her phone from room to room instead of leaving it charging on the kitchen counter. Calls that used to happen while she folded laundry suddenly happened outside on the porch. Then our credit card balance jumped by several $1,000s. We had never been perfect about spending, but we had always talked before making large purchases. I wasn't asking her to explain coffee, groceries, or a new pair of shoes. I asked because the balance had risen fast enough that we would start paying significant interest if we didn't address it. I brought it up one evening while we were cleaning up after dinner. Maya was standing at the sink, rinsing a plate. I had the statement open on my phone. "Did we put something big on the card?" I asked. Her shoulders tightened before she even looked at me. "What do you mean?" "The balance is almost $4,000 higher than last month." She shut off the water. "Why are you checking up on me?" "I'm checking the bill." "That's the same thing." "No, it isn't." She turned around, still holding the plate. "You keep score, Colin. Every purchase, every transfer, every little thing." "I'm not asking about little things. I'm asking why the balance jumped by 4 figures. It was personal stuff." "What kind of personal stuff costs $4,000? She stared at me for a second, then set the plate down harder than necessary. "This is exactly what I mean," she said. "You make money feel like a leash." That line stayed with me because it didn't fit the conversation we were having. I had never restricted her access to our joint checking account. We both had cards. We both had spending money. We both knew the passwords. I paid the mortgage and utilities from the shared account because I was more consistent about due dates, but Maya could see every payment and every balance. Still, I backed off that night. I told myself she was stressed. I told myself marriage required trust. I told myself asking again would make me look suspicious, and I didn't want to become the kind of husband who treated his wife like an employee submitting expenses. A week later, Maya's mother called me. Cynthia rarely called unless it was a birthday or she needed help understanding something on her phone. When I saw her name, I assumed there had been a family emergency. Instead, she said, "Maya tells me she feels watched." I was sitting in my car outside a grocery store with a bag of ice cream melting on the passenger seat. Watched how? You know how? Money. Receipts. Questions every time she spends anything. That isn't what happened. She came to me crying. "What did she tell you?" Cynthia exhaled sharply, as if I were already being difficult. A wife shouldn't have to feel like she's submitting receipts to her husband. I asked about one credit card balance that increased by several $1,000s. She said you interrogated her. I asked 2 questions. She feels emotionally cornered. The wording was too polished. It sounded rehearsed, like Cynthia was repeating phrases Maya had supplied. I looked through the windshield at people pushing carts through the parking lot. Cynthia, a husband, also shouldn't have to find out from his mother-in-law that his wife has been building a case against him instead of having a conversation. "This is not a case," she said. "This is my daughter trying to feel safe." Safe from what? Her silence lasted half a beat too long. "Maybe you should ask yourself why she can't talk to you." The call ended with Cynthia telling me to be gentler and me promising nothing. When I got home, Maya was on the couch with a blanket pulled over her legs, watching television. A half-finished sparkling water sat on the coffee table. There were 3 more half-finished cans on the kitchen counter. She had always opened a new one when the old one got warm. It used to make me laugh. That night, it just irritated me. "Your mother called me," I said. Maya kept her eyes on the television. "Okay. Did you tell her I control your spending?" "I told her how I feel." "You told her I make you submit receipts." "I said you track everything." "I asked about one balance." She picked up the remote and paused the show. "Do you hear yourself? You're keeping a record of how many times you asked." I remember the conversation because it happened a week ago. There, that tone, like you're cross-examining me. I'm trying to understand what story you're telling your family. It's not a story just because you don't like it. I sat in the chair across from her. "Are you unhappy in this marriage?" She looked at me then. For a moment, the anger dropped away. What remained was something colder. "I'm tired," she said. "Of me. Of feeling like I need permission." "You don't need permission to spend normal amounts of money. You know that. You always add a condition. Because normal amounts and $4,000 are not the same thing." She stood and carried her sparkling water toward the kitchen. "You don't get to audit my emotions." "I'm not auditing emotions," I said. "I'm looking at a bill with interest attached to it." She didn't answer. Over the next month, the strange charges continued. Not every day, just often enough to keep the balance from dropping. There were cash advances, a furniture store charge, an application fee I didn't recognize, and repeated payments to a digital wallet. Whenever I asked, Maya had an explanation that was almost an explanation. The furniture was for something she might need. The application fee was personal. The digital wallet transfers were helping someone out. "Who?" I asked. "A friend." "What friend?" "Someone going through a hard time." "How much are you sending?" Her eyes narrowed. "You don't get to decide who I help. I get to know whether shared debt is paying for it." "You make everything sound ugly. Then make it clear." She left the room. I started saving statements after that. Not secretly in the sense that I was hiding them from her. They were our statements, available to both of us. But instead of glancing at them and moving on, I downloaded copies and stored them in a folder. I wrote dates next to unusual charges. I took screenshots of messages where I asked for explanations, and she refused. I didn't know what I was preparing for. I only knew I no longer trusted my own memory after enough conversations ended with Maya insisting I had said things I hadn't said. One night, I woke around midnight and found her side of the bed empty. The porch light glowed through the curtains. I walked into the hall and heard her voice through the back door. "No," she said quietly. "It's almost handled." I stopped. There was a pause. "I know what I said. I just need a little more time." The floor creaked under my foot. Maya turned and saw me through the glass. She ended the call immediately. When she came inside, she held her phone tight against her palm. "Who was that?" I asked. "Private." "Private from your husband?" "Yes, Colin. People are allowed privacy." "At midnight." She brushed past me. "You're not entitled to every corner of my life." "No," I said. "But when the corner touches our bank account, I'm allowed to ask why the floor is moving." She stopped in the hallway. "You really think everything is about money?" "I think the money is telling me something you won't." She went back to bed without answering. The name Julian appeared 2 weeks later. Maya mentioned him casually over breakfast, almost too casually. "Julian's having a rough time," she said while spreading cream cheese on a bagel. I looked up. "Julian, as in your ex?" She rolled her eyes. "He's not my ex like that. We dated years ago. That is usually what ex means. He's a friend." "A friend you've been sending money to?" Her knife stopped moving. "I didn't say that." "You said you were helping someone. You've been taking private calls. Now you mention Julian. You're connecting things because you want a reason to accuse me. I'm asking." You're always asking. Because you never answer. She shoved the plate away. He lost his place. He had medical expenses. He needed some help. How much? That's between me and him. No. If it's on our card, it's between all three of us. She stood so fast the chair scraped the floor. You are obsessed. And you are funding your ex with our money. He isn't asking me for much. How much? She grabbed her phone and walked out. That afternoon, she texted me from another room. I can't keep living under surveillance. I replied, asking about shared debt is not surveillance. She sent back, you always have an answer ready. That's part of the problem. It was around then that I began to understand the fight was no longer about whether a charge was reasonable. Maya was changing the meaning of ordinary words. A question became an interrogation. A budget became control. A boundary became punishment. Documentation became surveillance. I still wanted to save the marriage, but I no longer knew what saving it meant if every attempt to discuss reality became proof that I was dangerous. The final argument before the transfer happened on a Sunday afternoon. Maya had been out most of the day. When she came home, she dropped her keys into the bowl by the door and told me she had been looking at apartments. I was sitting at the dining table with the credit card bill. You're planning to move out? I asked. I need space. For how long? I don't know. Are you asking for a separation? Why do you need a label for everything? Because if we are separating, we need to protect both of us financially. She laughed once, without humor. There it is. What? You don't care that I'm hurting. You care about controlling the money. I care that we have a joint account with nearly $90,000 in it, and growing debt you won't explain. So now I need permission to leave? No. If you want to leave, leave. But neither of us gets to empty the account on the way out. Her face changed. It was subtle, but I saw it. Her anger sharpened into calculation. If we're separating, I continued, we put the savings somewhere neither of us can move it without written agreement. We can talk to attorneys. We can divide things properly. You want to lock me down before I can breathe. I want both of us to stop pretending panic is a financial plan. You think I'm panicking? I think you've been planning something without me. She walked upstairs. For the rest of the day, we barely spoke. The next evening, I came home and found the laptop open on the dining table. Maya sat across from it with one hand resting beside the trackpad. She looked calm. Too calm. Sit down, she said. I remained standing. What did you do? She turned the laptop toward me. Our savings account showed a balance of $0. For a few seconds, my mind refused to process the screen. I focused on details around it instead. The smudge on the corner of the laptop. The overhead light reflected in the glass. A takeout container on the counter. The hum of the refrigerator. Then I looked at the transaction line. $89,200 transferred. The receiving account was listed only by the last 4 digits. Did you just move all of it? I asked. I moved what I needed before you could trap me. I pulled out my phone and took a picture of the screen. Maya smiled. You always wanted everything documented, she said. So document this. I took another, closer picture, making sure the transaction date and amount were visible. You should have protected yourself better, she said. I looked at her. There was no fear in her face. No panic. No uncertainty. She believed she had won. Where did you send it? Somewhere you can't touch. Did you use the linked transfer form? That's none of your business. It is literally my business. I needed to protect myself. From what? From you. I felt anger then. Not the hot kind that makes people throw things. It was colder. It made every detail in the room look sharp. You expected me to yell? I said. She folded her arms. You always find a way to make yourself the victim. No. You expected me to yell because you already told everyone I would. Her expression flickered. I nodded toward the screen. Then we're done pretending this is a misunderstanding. I didn't ask her to give the money back. I didn't call Cynthia. I didn't threaten Julian. I walked upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and started building a record. First, I downloaded every available statement from the joint savings and checking accounts. Then I saved the credit card statements, including the cash advances and digital wallet transfers. I took screenshots of the messages where Maya called basic financial questions controlling. I wrote a timeline while the dates were still fresh. At 9:42 p.m., I called the bank's general service line. I explained that the joint savings account had been emptied through a transfer I had not authorized. The representative asked several identity questions, then transferred me to security. A woman named Denise told me she couldn't disclose everything while the transaction was still processing, but she could place a note on the account and open a review. Did you sign or electronically authorize any request to close or transfer the linked savings subaccount? She asked. No. Did you provide your spouse with a one-time verification code? No. Did you approve any electronic authorization today? No. There was a pause while she typed. I'm seeing activity that requires review, she said. What kind of activity? I'm not able to characterize it until our security team completes the initial process. Preserve any communication related to the transfer. Do not attempt to bypass or informally reverse the transaction with the receiving institution. Is the money gone? I can't answer that yet. Can she move it again? The activity is being reviewed. It wasn't much, but it was enough to tell me the transfer had not been clean. After the call, I redirected my direct deposit to an individual account I had kept open with a small balance. I paused the 2 shared credit cards on which I was the primary account holder. I didn't close them. I didn't touch Maya's personal card. I simply stopped new charges from landing on accounts connected to my credit. Then I set alerts with the major credit reporting services and changed passwords on my personal email and banking profiles. At 1:18 a.m., I sent Maya one message. I have reported the transfer as unauthorized by me. Communicate with me in writing about finances from this point forward. She read it and did not reply. I slept for maybe 2 hours. When I woke, my phone showed 37 missed calls. 31 were from Maya. 4 were from Cynthia. 2 were from an unknown number I later learned belonged to the receiving bank. There were also 12 text messages. Call me now. What did you do? You had no right. The money is mine too. You are proving everything I said. Fix this. I let the calls go to voicemail while I made coffee. At 7:06 a.m., Maya called again. I answered. What did you do? She demanded. Her voice was completely different from the night before. The confidence was gone. She sounded breathless and furious. I asked the bank why $89,200 disappeared overnight. You ruined everything. What exactly did I ruin? You froze my account. I did not freeze your account. Yes, you did. They won't let me access anything. The bank restricted the transfer. Because you called them. Because I did not authorize it. You knew I was leaving. I knew you looked at apartments. I didn't know you planned to empty our savings. It's joint money. Then why did you need my authorization? Silence. I stood at the kitchen counter, staring at the dark television screen. Maya, I said, what exactly did I ruin? The transfer you made, or the signature you used to push it through? The silence changed. It was no longer angry. It was careful. I didn't sign anything. I didn't say you signed something. You just accused me. I asked a question. You're trying to scare me. No, I'm trying to understand why the bank is reviewing authorization tied to my name. You need to call them and tell them it was approved. It wasn't. It was our money. That is not the same as my approval. Her breathing became uneven. I was scared, Colin. You were smiling last night. You don't know what you've put me through. Keep it in writing. I ended the call. An hour later, I received an email from the bank's security department. It stated that the transfer activity was restricted pending review due to irregular authorization associated with the request. It advised both account holders not to move, withdraw, pledge, or redirect the disputed funds. The language was dry, but I read the phrase irregular authorization several times. I printed the email. Then I called a family lawyer. The first appointment available was that afternoon. I brought a folder with the account statements, the screenshot showing the zero balance, the bank email, the credit card records, and a handwritten timeline. The lawyer, a woman named Rachel, read quietly for several minutes. When she looked up, she said, "Do not argue with her about intent over the phone. I already told her to keep it in writing." Good. Separate your income. Preserve everything. Do not delete messages, even if they make you angry. I paused the cards where I'm the primary holder. That is generally a reasonable protective step, but document why you did it, and do not interfere with accounts that are solely hers. I haven't. She tapped the bank email. The authorization issue matters. You do not need to solve that yourself. Let the bank investigate. Your job is to avoid creating competing stories. She already told her family, I'm financially abusive. Then assume anything you say emotionally will be repeated without context. I rub my hands together. I want the money protected. We can request that disputed marital funds be held in a protected account requiring written agreement or court authorization before either party moves them. We can also request full disclosure of debts. What about the credit cards? Do not pay undisclosed debt tied to a third party until we understand what it is. Third party, meaning Julian. Rachel looked at me. Who is Julian? My wife's ex. That detail belongs in the timeline, not in a confrontation. I nodded. She leaned back. You do not win this by proving you are hurt. You protect yourself by proving what happened. I can do that, I said. At the time, I didn't yet know how much had happened. The deeper truth came out in pieces. The first piece was an apartment appointment confirmation that arrived in our shared email account. Maya had used that email for household scheduling for years and apparently forgot the leasing office would send a copy there. The appointment had taken place 3 days before she emptied the savings. The unit required a large deposit and several months of rent up front because Maya had applied using income information that did not fully support the lease. The second piece was the credit card disclosure Rachel requested through formal correspondence. Maya's private balances were much higher than I knew. She had nearly $20,000 in revolving debt spread across several accounts, including cash advances and purchases that matched the furniture store and application fees I had questioned. The third piece came from Maya herself. After I insisted on written communication, she became careless in texts. You always make me look irresponsible. I did not make those charges. I had to help someone. Helping someone does not explain using my authorization. Stop saying that like I committed some crime. I never used the word crime. You know what you're implying. Then Cynthia forwarded me a message by accident. She had apparently meant to send it to Aaron, Maya's sister's husband, but included me in the group. Maya will fold if Colin keeps acting cold. He cares too much about looking fair. We need everyone together so he can't hide behind lawyers. Cynthia deleted the message from the group seconds later, but I'd already taken a screenshot. That was when I realized the family dinner had been planned before I had agreed to it. The most damaging messages arrived through document production after Rachel formally requested records related to the disputed transfer and debts. Maya's lawyer, who seemed significantly less enthusiastic about her story after seeing the bank notice, provided a limited set of communications connected to the financial issue. Among them were messages between Maya and Julian. Maya, I need the deposit covered before he starts asking questions. Julian, you said the savings were joint. Maya, they are. He just thinks he gets to control when it moves. Julian, can you actually transfer it? Maya, once the money clears, he can yell all he wants. I'll already be gone. There was another exchange between Maya and a relative. Maya, once everyone thinks he's abusive with money, he won't fight me on the savings. Relative, that sounds risky. Maya, Colin will fold if everyone pressures him. He cares too much about looking fair. I read those messages at Rachel's office. The words didn't make me angry at first. They made me feel stupid. I had spent months wondering whether I was being unfair. I replayed conversations, softened questions, and apologized for my tone. Meanwhile, Maya had been choosing phrases designed to make any resistance look like proof. I said quietly, she planned the accusation. Rachel didn't answer immediately. Then she said, she planned leverage. That was worse. Scared people make messy choices. Maya had made a schedule. She had looked at apartments, built secret debt, sent money to Julian, prepared her family, moved the savings, used authorization connected to my name. Then she expected public pressure to force me to approve everything after the fact. The only part she hadn't planned for was the bank stopping her. Cynthia called me repeatedly during the next week. The first few times, I let the calls go to voicemail. Her messages moved through several versions of the same argument. Maya is devastated. You are making this worse. She needs access to her money. Whatever happened between you, freezing her out is cruel. Then Aaron called. I answered because Aaron had always been the most practical person in Maya's family. He disliked conflict so much that he often agreed with whoever sounded most upset, But he wasn't stupid. I'm not saying you're wrong, he began, which usually meant someone was about to ask me to surrender. But Maya looks terrified. Terrified of what? She says you cut off everything. I redirected my income and paused cards tied to my credit after she emptied the savings. She said the savings were hers too. They were. That is why neither of us had the right to take all of it. He was quiet. She says you reported her like a criminal. I reported a transfer I didn't authorize. Did she actually sign your name? That is one of the questions the bank is reviewing. Aaron sighed. Cynthia wants everyone to have dinner and talk. I'm not discussing the money without documentation. Bring it. What? Bring the documentation. If there's more going on, people should see it. I looked at the folder on my desk. There is more going on. Then come. I agreed. Not because I thought a family dinner would solve anything. It wouldn't. I agreed because Maya had already turned the family into part of her strategy. Avoiding them would let her keep using my silence as evidence. Rachel advised me not to reveal confidential legal communications or anything unrelated to the financial accusations. So I prepared carefully. I printed the screenshot showing the account at zero. I printed the transfer record with the amount, date, receiving account status, and pending review note. I printed the bank email about irregular authorization. I printed the credit card summary showing undisclosed balances. I printed the apartment appointment confirmation. I printed the messages where Maya discussed family pressure and the savings. Then I created a one-page timeline with dates and short descriptions. I placed everything in a plain manila envelope. No dramatic binder. No presentation. No speech. Just enough evidence to stop the room from pretending this was a disagreement about my tone. The dinner was at Cynthia's house. When I arrived, Maya was already seated beside her mother. She wore a soft gray sweater and no makeup. Her eyes looked swollen. Whether she had been crying or had made sure she looked like she had been crying, I couldn't tell. Aaron sat across from her, turning his water glass slowly between his hands. Maya's sister was there too, along with two other relatives who had apparently been invited to witness my correction. The food was already on the table. Roast chicken, potatoes, green beans, and rolls. No one was eating. I placed the envelope beside my chair. Cynthia noticed it immediately. What is that? She asked. Documents. Her mouth tightened. This is a family conversation, Colin. It became a financial investigation when my authorization was used. Maya flinched. Cynthia put a hand on her arm. Don't threaten her. I did not threaten anyone. That tone, Maya said softly. That is what I've been dealing with. I sat down. For the first 10 minutes, Cynthia spoke almost entirely for Maya. She said Maya had felt trapped for months. She said Maya had been afraid to buy basic things without being questioned. She said I had used my knowledge of our accounts to punish her for wanting independence. She said a decent husband didn't make his wife beg for access to her own money. I let her finish. That seemed to make her angrier. Do you have anything to say? She demanded. Yes. I placed the envelope on the table. You've all heard the version where I trapped her. Now read the version with dates. I opened the envelope and slid the one-page timeline toward Aaron. Then I passed the account screenshot and transaction record to Cynthia. Maya stared at me. What are you doing? Answering the accusation. You're humiliating me. No, I'm documenting what you already made public. Cynthia looked at the account screenshot. We know she moved the money, she said. She was trying to protect herself. I handed her the bank email. I did not freeze her out. The bank restricted the transfer because of authorization concerns. Cynthia read the first paragraph, then read it again. What does a regular authorization mean? It means the transfer included approval connected to my name that I did not provide. Maya pushed her chair back slightly. That's not what happened. Aaron looked up from the timeline. What happened? Maya glanced at him, then at Cynthia. It was a joint account. I had the right to move it. That's not the question, Aaron said. Cynthia set the email down. Maybe she clicked the wrong thing. These forms are confusing. They are not so confusing that my authorization appears by accident, I said. You don't know that. The bank is reviewing it. That is why the funds are restricted. Maya folded her arms. You called them and made it sound suspicious. I told them I did not authorize the transfer. The dates are doing the rest. I passed Aaron the credit card summary. He scanned the first page. What is this debt? He asked. Maya's face hardened. Private. Almost $20,000 is not private in a divorce, I said. We are not divorced. You were preparing to leave. I needed options. I handed Cynthia the apartment appointment confirmation. Her eyes moved across the page. You already applied for an apartment? Maya didn't answer. Maya, Cynthia asked. I was looking. The deposit was due the morning after the transfer, I said. That doesn't prove anything. It proves timing. I placed the printed messages in the middle of the table. Maya reached for them, but Aaron took the first page before she could. He read silently. The room changed while he read. His eyebrows drew together. His mouth tightened. Then he handed the page to Cynthia. She read the line twice. Colin will fold if everyone pressures him. He cares too much about looking fair. Cynthia looked at Maya. You said that. I was upset. You said we should pressure him. I said I needed support. Aaron picked up another page. Once everyone thinks he's abusive with money, he won't fight me on the savings. Maya's sister set down her fork. Maya turned toward me. You had no right to drag private messages into this. You involved everyone at this table in those messages. You're weaponizing things I said when I was scared. I held her gaze. Were you scared when you texted Julian that the money would clear before I could stop it? The room became very still. Maya's face lost color. Cynthia looked from her to me. Julian. I slid the exchange across the table. Maya reached for it again, but Cynthia picked it up first. She read the messages without speaking. Maya turned on me. You had no right to drag him into this. You dragged him into it when you tried to fund him with our savings. He needed help. You sent him money while hiding debt from me. You never would have understood. I understand the numbers. You understand nothing about what it feels like to live with you. Aaron leaned forward. Did you sign his name? Maya looked at him. What? Stop talking around it. Did you sign Colin's name or use his authorization? I told you it was joint money. That is not an answer. Cynthia touched Maya's wrist. Honey, just explain. Maya's eyes filled with tears. You don't understand what he put me through. Aaron's voice stayed level. Did you sign his name? Maya looked at Cynthia instead of answering. That silence did more than any document on the table. Aaron leaned back. That is not helping you. Maya stood. I cannot believe all of you are sitting here letting him do this to me. I stayed seated. I did not move the money. You've been waiting for this, she said to me. You wanted to break me in front of everyone. No, I wanted you to correct the lie before it reached this table. You could have talked to me privately. I tried that for 6 months. You interrogated me. I asked about debt. You controlled me. I asked where our money went. You never loved me the way I needed. The sentence landed harder than I expected. For a second, I saw the woman who used to steal fries from my plate. The woman who danced in the kitchen while waiting for pasta water to boil. The woman who once slept in a hospital chair beside me after a minor surgery because she refused to go home. Then I looked at the transfer record. I loved being your husband, I said. I'm not willing to be your cover story. Maya stared at me. Cynthia started crying quietly. No one touched the food. Maya grabbed her purse and left. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the framed photos in the hallway. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Cynthia said, You did not have to do that in front of everyone. I looked at her. She made the accusation in front of everyone. You could have protected her dignity. She used mine as cover. She is still my daughter. And I was still your son-in-law when you called me abusive without asking for a single date or statement. Cynthia looked down. I'm sorry I called you heartless, she said. I didn't know about Julian. I didn't know about the authorization. You didn't ask. Her lips pressed together. You may be right about the money, she said, but you did not have to break her in front of her family. I did not break her. I refused to lie for her. Aaron folded the timeline and placed it back on the table. Cynthia, we can't keep calling him controlling if the bank flagged her transfer. She was desperate. Desperate people can still do illegal things, he said. Cynthia shook her head. I'm not discussing my daughter like she's a criminal. No one asked you to, I said. But stop discussing me like I'm her abuser. I gathered the papers and left. Maya called me 3 times before I reached home. I didn't answer. Her voicemail arrived while I was locking the door. You don't even understand what you did, she said. Her voice cracked between anger and tears. He won't answer me now? Everyone is acting like I'm some criminal because of you. I saved the voicemail. Julian disappeared almost immediately. According to messages disclosed later, he sent Maya one final text. I can't be involved in this. Do not contact me about the money. That was it. No apology. No offer to help with the apartment. No willingness to stand beside her while the bank reviewed the transfer. He had been available while the money looked reachable. Once it became evidence, he was gone. Maya left me another voicemail that night. You scared him off. You ruined my apartment. You froze everything. I didn't respond by phone. I wrote. The bank restricted the transfer because of authorization concerns. I will communicate through counsel regarding the account, debt, and separation. She replied, So you're just abandoning me? I answered, No, I'm refusing to finance the plan you made behind my back. Rachel filed the necessary requests to protect the disputed funds. The bank's review continued, which meant the $89,200 remained restricted. Neither Maya nor I could access it while the authorization issue was being examined. The proposed arrangement placed the money into a protected account requiring written agreement or legal authorization before either of us could move it. Maya resisted at first. She claimed the restrictions proved I wanted control. Rachel responded with the transfer record and the bank notice. Maya claimed the debt was personal. Rachel requested full disclosure because the debt had been accumulated during the marriage and some of it appeared connected to Julian and the plan department. Maya claimed I had cut her off. We provided records showing she still had access to her own income and individual accounts. I had only redirected my income and paused cards tied to my credit after the savings vanished. She claimed I owed half of her secret balances. Rachel advised me not to pay anything until the accounts were reviewed. The anniversary trip Maya had booked for us months earlier was scheduled for the following season. The remaining payment was due automatically from the shared checking account. I canceled it. Not to punish her. There was no marriage left to celebrate, and paying thousands of dollars for a trip while attorneys reviewed secret debt would have been absurd. Maya sent me a screenshot of the cancellation notice. You even took this from me. I replied, The trip was for our anniversary. We are separating. She did not answer. My written terms were simple. The joint funds had to remain protected. Maya had to acknowledge the transfer and disputed authorization in writing. She had to correct the specific false claims she had made to the relatives she involved. Financial communication had to remain written or go through counsel. I would not pay debt tied to Julian, the apartment plan, or purchases she had hidden. I also wrote, I am not discussing reconciliation while the money, the authorization, and the false accusations are unresolved. This is not punishment. This is the minimum required for any further conversation. Maya accused me of drafting demands like a contract. I reminded her that the marriage had turned into bank evidence because private trust had already failed. For almost 2 weeks, she refused to cooperate. Then the receiving bank asked additional questions about the transfer. Her apartment application lapsed because she couldn't provide the deposit. Her credit card companies began calling about missed payments. Julian remained silent. Even Cynthia stopped calling me to demand that I release the money. Maya's lawyer eventually advised her to cooperate. She signed a written acknowledgement that she had initiated the transfer without my approval. The language around the authorization was carefully negotiated, but it was enough to stop her from claiming I had frozen a legitimate transaction out of spite. She also sent a message to the relatives who had attended dinner. I told you Colin was restricting my access to money and making me unsafe. The savings transfer and bank review were more complicated than I explained. Colin did not empty the account or take the funds for himself. It was not a full confession. She didn't admit that the accusation had been part of her plan. She didn't mention Julian. She didn't apologize for using words she knew would make people distrust me. But the message corrected the central lie. That mattered more than a dramatic apology I would never believe. Cynthia called after receiving it. I suppose you're satisfied, she said. No. What else do you want from her? I want the divorce handled honestly. Cynthia sighed. She has lost everything. She lost access to money. She tried to move improperly. She lost Julian. That was his decision. She lost her apartment. She applied before discussing separation with me and planned to pay the deposit with disputed funds. You always have an answer. I have dates. Cynthia was quiet. Then she said, I'm sorry I believed the worst about you. It was the closest thing to a real apology I got from her. Thank you, I said. But I still think the dinner was cruel. You were using the dinner to pressure me. I was trying to help my daughter. And I was protecting myself. We ended the call without resolving that difference. Aaron sent me a separate message. For what it's worth, you were right to bring proof. Nobody would have believed you otherwise. I saved that too, though not for a lawyer. Just for myself. The bank's investigation took time. There was no dramatic phone call where someone announced a final victory. There were forms, verification questions, written statements, and long stretches where nothing seemed to happen. Eventually, the funds were moved into the protected account pending the financial settlement. Maya could not use them for the apartment, Julian, or her credit cards. I could not use them either. That was fine. I had never wanted the money as a trophy. I wanted it to stop being a weapon. The divorce process began formally soon after. Maya and I met once in person with our attorneys present to discuss temporary financial arrangements. She looked tired, not fragile like she had at Cynthia's dinner, just worn down. For several minutes, she avoided looking at me. Then she said, You could have fixed this. Rachel glanced at me, but didn't interrupt. What does fixing it mean? I asked. You could have told the bank it was approved. It wasn't. You knew why I needed to leave. You could have left without taking everything. I thought you would stop me. I offered written boundaries and a fair process. You made it sound like a business deal. It became a business deal when you used my name. She looked down at the table. I was scared. I believe you were unhappy, I said. I do not believe fear made you schedule an apartment, hide debt, prepare your family, and promise money to Julian. You think you're perfect? No. That answer seemed to surprise her. I continued. I ignored warning signs because I wanted to be fair. I apologized for asking reasonable questions. I let you redefine every boundary as control because I was afraid of becoming the man you said I was. That was my mistake. Her eyes filled. So that's it. Yes. You don't even want to try? I wanted to try before the transfer. Before the lies. Before you decided my reputation was a tool. I made mistakes. You made a plan. She looked at Rachel, then at her own attorney. I hate how cold you are now. I'm not cold. I'm done arguing with facts. That was the last private conversation we had. After that, communication stayed written and practical. The house expenses were divided temporarily. The disputed credit card charges were categorized. The savings remained protected. My income went into my separate account. Maya's income went into hers. Neither of us had the ability to surprise the other with a 5-figure transfer. I slept better once the rules were clear. Not happier. Better. There is a difference. I grieved the marriage in small, embarrassing ways. I found one of Maya's half-finished sparkling waters in the back of the refrigerator and stood there holding it longer than I should have. I deleted a restaurant reservation we had made months earlier. I opened a drawer and found a birthday card where she had written that I made her feel safe. For several days, I couldn't throw it away. I was not celebrating the divorce. I didn't feel victorious because Julian abandoned her or because her family finally saw the evidence. There was no pleasure in realizing the person I trusted had spent weeks preparing to make me look dangerous. But I also stopped confusing grief with obligation. I did not owe Maya access to my income because she was upset. I did not owe her payment of debt she hid. I did not owe her silence while she called me abusive. I did not owe her a clean public story purchased with my reputation. Some of her relatives still say I went too far at the dinner. They say I should have handled the messages privately. They say Maya was already vulnerable and that putting the documents on the table humiliated her. Maybe it did. I know I could have chosen a softer setting. I know I was not motivated only by legal caution. Part of me wanted the people who had judged me to feel the weight of how wrong they were. I can admit that. But Maya chose the audience before I chose the evidence. She told them I trapped her. She told them I controlled her. She prepared them to pressure me into approving a transfer that should never have happened. By the time I sat at that table, privacy had already been used against me. The only thing I exposed was the part of the story she had hidden. The $89,200 was eventually treated as marital property under the protected arrangement. The secret debt became part of the formal financial review. Maya never got the apartment she planned to fund with the transfer. Julian never returned. Cynthia stopped calling me heartless, though I doubt she will ever forgive me for making her see her daughter clearly. Aaron and I are not friends, but he checked in once after the separation paperwork was filed. "You doing okay?" he asked. "Some days." He nodded. For what it's worth, I should have asked more questions before dinner. "So should I said. "What do you mean?" I should have asked myself why I was working so hard to prove I wasn't controlling while she was moving the boundaries every week. He looked at me for a moment, then said, "Yeah, that was all." The divorce is moving forward. My credit is protected. My income is separate. The savings cannot be moved without written agreement. Every financial conversation is documented. Maya no longer gets to use my silence as proof of guilt or my desire to be fair as leverage. I did not destroy my marriage by protecting the account. I just stopped pretending the person who emptied it was still on my side. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.